Good people, what is going on? Another episode of the Uncle Podcast. I'm your host, Desmond. Consider hitting that like and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate it. Want to talk about the quarterback carousel that is continuing to happen during this free agency period. I feel like this has been and maybe it's just recency bias, but I feel like this has been the most active we've seen, at least rumor wise, with quarterbacks. You had Stafford, who was, was given permission to kind of talk to other teams. He ends up signing an extension or reworking his contract to stay with the Rams. You have Sam Darnold, who is not going to be franchise tagged by the Vikings, which I think that deadline has passed. You've got Aaron Rodgers, who's not going to be retained by the Jets. So there's definitely some movement. The Steelers quarterbacks, you've got Russell Wilson, Justin Fields that are available. Sounds like there's been some discussions with the Steelers and one or both of those guys. So not quite sure where they are going to stand. And then you also have just the teams that have high draft picks that potentially could draft a quarterback. Cleveland Browns have just restructured Deshaun Watson's contract, which to me leads me to think that they may end up releasing him. Not quite sure on those ramifications as far as dead cap and all that good stuff, but they converted his salary to a signing bonus, which you can kind of spread across multiple years. I'm not quite sure what they're going to do there with him, but he's going to be pretty much out for all this season, the next season, because I think he had a torn Achilles, if I'm not mistaken, or some injury that he had. So it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening. As far as the Vikings, I think it's a really difficult spot to be in because as well as Sam Darnold played in weeks 1 through 17, he was even more awful in that Detroit Lions game for the number one seed, the division, and really bad as well in that I believe they played the Rams in the no, I'm sorry, they did not play the Rams. Who did the Vikings play? Goodness gracious, it was the Rams. Yeah, they played the Rams in the first round. So in both of those games, the Vikings scored 9 points, and Sam Darnold was awful in both of those games. So I'm definitely not letting him off the hook. Like he was terrible, and there's that period at the end of that sentence. What I will also say is Kevin O'Connell did a terrible job calling plays, at least in the Detroit Lions game. I wasn't as dialed into the Vikings Rams game, but I know in that Detroit Lions game, he was a terrible play caller. I mean, you see that the Lions are bringing pressure, and your O line is just not protecting well. And to have these 5 and 7 step drops is just poor play calling. Like that's bad play calling, bad execution. Where you look at the flip side of that is what the Washington Commanders did to the Lions offense. Everything was quick, RPO, get the ball out of Jaden Daniels' hands quickly, and they were able to shred what was left of the Detroit Lions defense. And I just thought that Kevin O'Connell somehow got off scot free from that, and to be supposedly this genius offensive play caller and so on and so forth. I just didn't understand it. And furthermore, with that, I am someone that when it comes to just such a strong opinion, especially one that is widespread, like the Kevin O'Connell, he's a whatever younger Sean McVay, but even outside of that, it's like, oh, he's an offensive genius. And I think Kyle Shanahan gets this label as well. And my thing is if you can't be an offensive genius in the biggest games that you need to be, then I don't think I want to call you an offensive genius. Like for Kyle Shanahan, I think he is a great head coach. I think he's terrific. I think he's a great play caller. But to make it to genius is just too far for me because in the Super Bowls when you gotta have it and when you gotta need it, or when you gotta have it and need it, you aren't able to get it done, and that it's just tough to say genius because you would imagine that on the biggest stage and when you've got, a little bit of time to prepare, that is when you would show off your genius. I mean, Andy Reid does it, right? Like I know he just got, beat as far as this past Super Bowl, but his record with any type of, additional time to prepare is terrific. And for Kyle and then also for Kevin O'Connell, it's like that's when you need to have your to pull out your trump card. And to not do that, I think that phrase and that term, especially in pro football, gets thrown around too much. But nonetheless, so as I mentioned, with the Minnesota Vikings, I think if it were me and I was the GM, I would re-sign Sam Darnold to probably similar to the Baker Mayfield contract. I think it was 100 million guaranteed, something like that. Baker Mayfield contract. But I would do it, and I do understand that you drafted JJ McCarthy, early in that draft. Um, but the my issue would be the bird in the hand versus two in the bush, right? You know what Sam Darnold is in your offense. He is a 35 touchdown quarterback and one who can win you 13, 14 games in a season. JJ McCarthy could be that, but he also could be Josh Rosen, right? And uh, that's just a possibility. Like that is how the NFL works. Like you just don't know. And sure, he could be, a much higher Josh Allen, for example. As far as production, he's not, they're very different quarterbacks, but he could be Josh Allen, but he could also not be very good. I think he's got the talent. I think he's rarely been in a spot as far as college and obviously his rookie year where he was injured that he's been asked to go out and win games. It has happened, but it's not been very often. I mean, I think in his that national championship season, I think he averaged about 22 passes per game. So not a ton. I mean, they had a game against Penn State where I think they threw what 9, 11 passes, something like that. They didn't throw the ball in the second half. And there were rumors that he was injured, but nonetheless, like that is the the level that he's been asked to play at. He's done very well. He gets a great report card for what he is asked to do, but he's never been asked to shoulder the load of an offense, and that's very different in the NFL. Like everybody's trying to, a good run game in the NFL is 3.5 yards a carry, 4 yards per carry. So it's something where you're going to have to throw the ball. I mean, I would say what 30 times is probably a pretty good average. Um, so can he do that and be effective? Can he go out and throw 35 touchdowns next season? I think history would say probably not. I mean, I'm sure most people are going to point to Patrick Mahomes and say, "Oh, well, his first season starting, he threw 50 touchdowns." Well, he also had, he had Tyreek Hill, he had Travis Kelsey, he had Andy Reid calling plays for him, and that was a good team the year before when Patrick Mahomes was a rookie and sat on the bench. Alex Smith was a starter; he was terrific. So, my bet would be that no, JJ McCarthy is not going to throw 35 touchdowns, and maybe you won't need him to. Maybe the offense will just look different. But if you're not going to drive the ball down the field like Sam Darnold did, he did a great job for like I said 17 weeks of just being effective, not turning the ball over a ton, throwing it down the field, putting a lot of pressure on opposing defenses, and he was effective. I don't think JJ McCarthy is going to replicate that. So that is what I would do as a GM. And I looked up the Baker contract. It was 3 years. Was it 100 million potential out? So yeah, 3 years, 3 years, 100 million roughly. With what was the guaranteed on that? Who knows? Not all that important, but I that's what I would do because the unfortunate part, and the Giants are dealing with this too, is there is a self preservation in this. If I'm the GM, right, I'm the one who drafted JJ McCarthy. What if he does turn out to be Josh Rosen? They're going to look at me, right? And I get it. McConnell is going to have some responsibility in this too, but a lot of that is going to be hey, that was your fault. You drafted this guy. You said he was going to be our future, and potentially he stinks. I'm not making any predictions, but that's going to be my fault. Versus if it's Sam Darnold, I mean there's an easy argument to be made to re-sign Sam Darnold. Yeah, why not? I mean, look what he did in our offense last year. Yeah, let's just run it back. We'll be we'll be fine. Justin Jefferson had a good year. We can we'll be just fine. See if we re-sign Aaron Jones. I'm not sure if he's under contract, but yeah, we'll just go that route. So that is what I would do. Excuse me. I would re-sign Sam Darnold. If I were the Minnesota Vikings GM, I would shoot for like a Baker Mayfield kind of deal. Um, and I would go from there. We'll see how things go. I mean, in this environment, you also need a high level backup quarterback. Like you can't just think you're going to have a undrafted free agent as your backup quarterback. The season's getting longer, and it's just natural guy for a guy to get banged up. So you need to invest in a backup quarterback. Now, first round is pretty pricey. First round draft pick as a backup quarterback, but yeah, I'd be willing to live with that. I would be willing to live with that. So that is what I would do there. Um, the Raiders made a trade for Geno Smith, and actually one of my good friends, Dre, who we actually talked about this yesterday. Um, Before the trade actually went down, we were talking about it earlier in the day, but he had mentioned with the Raiders that they should trade for Geno Smith, and my stance on it was, well, I'm gonna have to give up trade compensation. I would imagine Gino wants a new deal versus if I and at this time it was potentially Sam Darnold and then also Aaron Rodgers. Like Aaron Rodgers, you could probably get him on more of a short term, like 1 year deal, and I don't have to give up any trade compensation for him. I would prefer to go that route or just go all in with Sam Darnold, where you could sell to your fan base. We just extended Max Crosby. We've got Brock Bowers. He's a terrific young player at tight end, just broke the rookie tight end record. And then now we signed Sam Darnold. You still got some decent amount of cap space. I think that's a good those types of moves can give a fan base hope where they are going to be excited about the season. And I told Dre as well, as a Lions fan, there was plenty of times where we didn't even have anything close to that type of hope, and we were still hopeful as a fan base on what our team could be, and most times it didn't work out that way. So there's definitely something you could sell there, but nonetheless they've made that trade. So Gino is now with the Raiders, and in the argument that Dre made was the Pete Carroll connection. Pete knows exactly what he's getting with Geno Smith, and if he feels like he can win with that, then great. I mean, and Geno was successful with Pete Carroll, so we'll see what happens there. I think I I would imagine Seattle's going to go young with their quarterback, uh, but I mean, at this point, the options are getting bleak. So you've got Sam Darnold, who's a free agent. You've got um, Aaron Rodgers, who had just mentioned, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. That area. Do they? I mean, if you wanted to go young, you could probably go Justin Fields and just see. Yeah, I would imagine they're not going to look to go to circle the wagons with Russell Wilson. So yeah, I would imagine either Justin Fields or just drafting a quarterback in the first round for the Seahawks. Not quite sure. Really not sure. If it were me, I'd probably roll the dice and wait until the draft to see what who's available at my pick. Um, and then from there, if I am not happy with a quarterback at first round or second round, then I'd probably call Justin Fields and see if we can get a deal done and just go from there. So for Seattle, just try to fill some needs, best player available, and then go from there. So I'm gonna search real quick, see where Seattle is drafting. They are. number 18. So, it's possible. It's very possible. The other thing I want to talk about was just the Detroit Lions. So I did a video about when Miles Garrett had requested a trade, that I think the Detroit Lions should be all over that. And, calling Cleveland Browns again and again and again. Give them a call, don't answer, call them right back. Don't answer, call them right back. To me, it's that much of a game changer as far as where the Detroit Lions are. I'd be willing to give up two ones. I, obviously would give up a one and a two, but even if I needed to give up this year's draft pick and next year's one, I would be willing to do that for Miles Garrett. I think he's that special of a player. Getting him teamed up with Aiden Hutchinson, I think would be an unstoppable duo. Realistically speaking, that's probably not going to happen. But there was a story out that the Tennessee Titans are releasing Harold Landry the third, who, outside linebacker, pass rusher. I mean, that's another one. I think the Lions should get him signed. I don't think make a call. Get him signed, because Landry had 9 sacks last year. The year before that had 10.5 sacks. In 2022, he had a torn ACL, so he missed that season. But like I said, he came back from having a torn ACL in 2022 to 10.5 sacks in 2023. And also the year before he tore his ACL in 2021, he had 12 sacks. So in his last three, well, let's say in his last 4 years, he's had 9 sacks, 10.5 sacks, and 12 sacks. That is what, 32 sacks roughly, something like that. 32 sacks in his last 4 years, and 32 in the last three healthy seasons. I mean, yeah, I would definitely give him a call, sign Harold Landry. I think he would be a great pick. Still young, he's only 28 years old. And then I would also make a call on Jonathan Allen. He was released by the Commanders, and his stats weren't as productive as Landry, but he's still someone who I think we could team with Ali McNeil and get a pretty decent pass rush interior. If you're not going to go the Landry route, obviously the Lions aren't trading for Miles Garrett. Max Crosby just got an extension. That's another guy who's off the table. So if you're not going to go one of those guys, I mean, it's in Brad's DNA to go for an older player who is going to be cheaper. I think Jonathan Allen will be able to command some money. I don't think he's going to sign for the league minimum by any stretch, but it won't be top of the market money. But I'd be willing to at least give him a call. He did deal with some injuries this last season. So yeah, he played in 8 games, which don't love that, but to be honest, Brad Holmes does. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I think Landry would be a home run signing for the Lions, and just someone else that I think could really help our pass rush. When you're talking about Aiden Hutchinson coming back, I saw a video, a month ago of him running. So I would imagine that by training camp, July, August, that Hutch will be ready to roll as far as practicing. He's a star, so you're not going to play him in preseason games, but get him up to speed to where he is healthy, full go in week one. Zadarius Smith still under contract. That would be wonderful, and then to add Landry into that mix as well, I think would be awesome. Plus, you still have Lee McNeil, who's a terrific interior player. We signed him to an extension, so I think a lot of positives with our D line if we can add someone who could be to me, 10 sacks is a tier one pass rusher. I get it. There's guys who are 15, 16, 17 and a half sacks. Trey Hendrickson is on the market as well. The Bengals have given him permission to seek a trade. He's another one I would like to the Lions to take a look there, but to be honest, they probably won't. And that brings me to another quick topic I'll do and wrap this thing up. But the Bengals, just The interesting part with the Bengals is I think there was a thought process of they have stopped operating as a poverty franchise. And I think the reality is they have not. They just were able to draft some good players. Like they were able to draft Joe Burrow, who was a game changer for their franchise, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Hendrickson. But even like Jesse Bates, you let him walk out the door. There's just been multiple people you've let walk out the door because you essentially just want to be cheap. Joe Burrow was the one exception as far as that extension. I've heard that the Bengals do not like to guarantee money outside of the first year, which is ridiculous in today's environment, in today's climate when it comes to contracts. But that's how they operate. And when they had come out with this report that they want to get all the guys signed, Trey Hendrickson, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, that they want to get all of those guys signed. Number one, I don't think that's a good way to use up your salary cap as far as paying those three guys in addition to Joe Burrow, because Jamar Chase, let's just say he signs for $35 million, which is the going rate for a number one receiver. Let's say T. Higgins signs for, let's say, 25 million. I think that's fair for him. Uh, that is 60 million. Trey Hendrickson's probably another $35 million, something like that. Let's call it 30. So you got $90 million in cap space with those three guys, plus Joe Burrow's 55 million. So now we're looking at what, 145? So that's over half of your cap. So I think the cap's about 255, 260. So it's over half of your salary cap. And your defense is awful. Your defense is terrible. It's interesting. I don't think that's a good way to use your cap. But number two, I also thought they were lying. Like, no, you guys are doing this just to appease Joe Burrow in the moment so that you can go and say, "Hey, man, we tried. We gave it the old college try. We gave it our best swing, and it just didn't work out. We couldn't get a contract done." And the last thing I will say is this is my controversial move that I would make if I were the Bengals. I know I would be nuts, but I would put Jamar Chase on I would let teams know he is available for trade. And the reason and it's not something that I think Jamar Chase sucks or anything like that. No, I actually think he's amazing. He's terrific. I think he is a better receiver than T. Higgins, and that's the whole point. I think you can get more for Jamar Chase. I think you could potentially get 2 1s for Jamar Chase. If not 2 1s, a one, a two, a three, a couple twos. You can get a lot. You can get a lot, and I don't want to. Let's say let's go with the Tyreek Hill trade to see what they received. Trade proposal. What was it? Sorry, I hate to search this up, but I'm interested to see exactly what the. Okay, so in the Chiefs Dolphins trade for Tyreek Hill, the Dolphins got Tyreek Hill. The Chiefs got a 2022 first round, second round, fourth rounder, and then in 2023 got a fourth round and a sixth round player or a pick, excuse me. So if that can I mean, I would say we can bump up both of those fourth rounders, third rounders. I mean, Jamar Chase just got the triple crown I mean, Jamar Chase has had a terrific season. He hasn't even had an extension yet. He's still on his rookie deal. He's in going into his fifth year option, but that's a very, very young asset who is in the peak of his powers right now. So I would I would I would I would think about doing that because for the Bengals, you need to get some young draft picks and young draft capital infused into your program because that you're going to be cash strapped for the most part, right? And you don't want to pay guys anyway. So That's what I would do. I might be crazy, but I would give it a go. Anyway, that is it for me. Appreciate you for listening. Peace.